Hello friend, welcome back. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we are doing an entire May garden tour. So many things have changed since, well, I haven't even shown you from start to finish garden tour, and things have changed since last time you were out in the garden or really have seen a full tour. So the biggest thing right here is we are getting ready for bees this weekend. We are ordering 2 nukes from a local beekeeper, and we pick them up in just a few days. So Josh is actually preparing this site right here for the bees. Now this is where the previous owner's garden was, and there were cinder block garden beds in this area. You can see the remnants of where they were from before. We found someone who was willing to come and take the cinder blocks that wanted them, and we were able to keep a few of them and reclaim them so that Josh can build somewhere for the bees. Now, what I'm gonna do is I need to seed this area with grass, and this is just gonna become kind of a lawn. In the future, we plan to do something with it, but for now, it is gonna be where the bees are housed. This might not be their permanent home long-term, but this is where Josh, with all his research, has decided to put them because there is some protection from the wind with those trees. They are gonna be facing out so that they can go out and forage for food, and I'm just really excited about beekeeping. So that is something that Josh is handling, and I'm excited to go along that adventure with him. Now we're gonna head out into the garden. There is some really awesome things that are happening, and there are some things that have died and failed, and I need to replant. So I figured now would be a great time to kind of do a baseline with how the garden is doing. There were tons of strawberry plants in that previous owner's garden, and I transplanted those, and I will show you that at the very end where those are. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting some strawberries. But for now, we're heading out into the main annual garden. All of the beds are planted except for one. So let's just start right here at this first bed. So the last thing I put into the ground were all of these pepper plants. And then I came back after and I put a few flowers. I had a few snapdragons left, so I threw those in there. I also threw in some nasturtiums. I just thought it would be nice to have some pops of color in here. And then I did pick up from Azure a few starts I'm going to show you throughout this tour. And that is feverfew, which is a cut flower, so that throughout the summer, hopefully, I can harvest some of the feverfew flowers and put those into my bouquets. It is kind of like a bigger version of baby's breath. These peppers are looking fantastic. I was a little worried about putting them into the ground because, I'll get to it in a little bit, I put a couple things into the ground, they completely died, and I did not want that to happen with my peppers. So I waited for the nighttime temperatures to be above 45 degrees, and so far we haven't dipped into anything below 50. I did plant some pink watermelon plants here, and those completely died. You're gonna notice a pattern. Some of the pumpkins and things I planted out, I think we got too cold of temperatures, and I had quite a few of them die, and I'll go through that as we get to it. But the back here, we planted rattlesnake pole beans, also can be used as a dried pinto bean kind of substitute, and we have some fantastic germination on those. So I'm really looking forward to that trellising up this trellis. So this bed is my hot pepper bed and some flowers, and then on this end I also planted out some Chinese mini white pumpkins, and they all died. So I went back after, about a week after, and I went ahead and I put some seeds directly into the ground. So hopefully those will be germinating here really quickly. So that's gonna be a pattern throughout here. So let's just go down here because I wanna talk about it. The same day I planted out all my pumpkins and melons, I also planted out my zinnias. And we were not supposed to have anything too cold, but apparently we did, because I had some serious damage on my pumpkins, my squash, and my loofahs, all of those plants that I planted out that same day, we had some serious damage and I needed to reseed a bunch of it. And zinnias was one of those things I planted out that day. Here you can see kind of a mixture of the good and the bad. So this plant right here, I think is completely dead. But some of them got pretty damaged, and you can see that they're putting on new growth. So I think that they are going to survive. I wasn't sure about some of them, like this one looked really bad, but look at all this beautiful new growth. This one obviously did not make it. That one didn't make it. And it was interesting because the different varieties of zinnias took whatever happened differently. So this variety of zinnia right here is Golden Hour, and it took quite a bit of damage. But this variety right here is Unicorn Mix, and it took very little damage. I only see about 3 or 5-ish plants that have damage, but a lot of them just look absolutely beautiful. And then here is Alpine Glow, and you can see it was kind of a mixture. Quite a bit of damage happened, but maybe they are going to come back. But some of them, I don't know. I also just went ahead and I had extra onion starts no one wanted. So I just put this in here, and I'm going to let those onions compost in place. And then over here we have our beautiful, hopefully beautiful, sweet peas. When I came out here and saw the damage on these zinnias, I was pretty devastated because those are the floret zinnias, and they are a very special seed. They are not a cheap zinnia seed, and I thought I lost all of them, but I think quite a few of them are salvageable. And some of them, when we get to it, the different varieties handled things very differently. One of my varieties, Precious Metal, completely died. So I did put in a new order, and they should be here today or tomorrow. Just 2 seed packs of the varieties that completely died, and I'm going to replant those, and I'm going to direct sow them, which will be kind of interesting to see how direct sowing does versus transplants. I normally transplant my zinnias, but they do like to be direct sowed, so maybe the direct sowing with, maybe it's not a good thing that this happened, but it'll be a learning opportunity to direct sow and see how it goes, and maybe I will always direct sow my zinnias from here on out. So this bed is looking fantastic. Again, I had planted some mini white pumpkins along this edge to kind of grow out the bed. They died, so I direct sowed those. These are my Walla Walla onions and my red onions, and they're looking beautiful. We have just sugar snap peas back there. Those are an eating pea, and those are looking beautiful. We'll have those very shortly. And then down here, I also direct sowed some of these little white pumpkins. I just left that there because I used all the seed, so I figured I'd use that as a tag. But I had one that did survive, but you can see it had a bunch of leaves that died, so I didn't think it would. So I went ahead and direct sowed a few, and we'll see how those do. And then I just put in a random snapdragon right here. So moving on, this is where we had loofahs. All my loofahs completely died. So I went ahead and I direct sowed loofahs after soaking them for 24 hours. And then I did go ahead and replant a seed next to every one of my starts. In here, these are all my pumpkins because they all looked horrible after I planted them, and I didn't think that they were going to survive. This Jardel pumpkin completely died, but these other ones have bounced back beautifully, so I don't know if I needed to reseed one seed of each variety, but I went ahead and did that. And then you can see I did plant along the inside here, everywhere where there's one of these tiny little holes. That was a zinnia plant. Those zinnias completely died. You can see here's a remnant of a zinnia, and it's completely dead. A few of them survived. These ones right here did. And this is nope, that's Waltman butternut. So that Waltman died, this Waltman died, and I did reseed those. But I don't remember what variety of zinnia this is. I would have to go back and look, but only a few of them looked worth leaving in the ground. So I am going to reseed these with the seeds when they come in the mail. So this was definitely a learning opportunity. I think what I might do moving forward is this year is the first year I've waited till Mother's Day weekend to plant out my hot peppers and tomatoes. And I think that might just be, I plan out all of my summer crops Mother's Day weekend. A lot of people do that, and I think that that's what I need to do moving forward. At my last house where we had our first gardens, it was a much milder climate, but here it's a lot colder. And so I think I just need to kind of jump on that bandwagon that I will not be planting out anything that is a summer crop until Mother's Day weekend. So I just want to go down and share with you all the varieties that we have in this bed. So here is loofah. Those have not sprouted since I reseeded them. We have Jardel. So I did put a seed next to each one of these plants because I didn't think that they were going to make it, but a lot of them made it. Now obviously this Waltman's butternut did not make it, so there is seed in the ground there. This is red warty thing, and these look actually really good. Here you can see some damaged that I didn't cut off. What I was doing is going through and actually removing the damaged leaves like that, and just letting that kind of compost in place. Here we have the green, I'm not sure how to say that, but this is a really cool looking pumpkin, and I'm gonna just go ahead and do that. Now that plant is gonna look a lot better. And then here we have another red warty thing. This is what that name of that pumpkin is. And then throughout this bed, you will see that there are potatoes, because this was a potato bed last year, and so there's a lot of volunteer potatoes. This is white flat stacker. I'm looking forward to this one. I thought I planted this last year, but I didn't. So I'm gonna want those for decorating. And I actually have 4 of those. And then here we have Jardel. So I'm really looking forward to this bed. I want all of those pumpkins kind of sprawling and taking over this whole walkway. That's what I did last year, and it was beautiful. And then I'm hoping for loofahs to grow along this trellis. So I also planted loofahs here the same day, and those died. So I reseeded that. And then this is the only bed that doesn't have anything in it. I had a little extra potting soil in my green stalks. I revamped 2 of my green stalks with the soil I used last year, and I added compost, but I needed to remove some soil, so I just put that in here. And this bed, I haven't decided what I'm gonna put in here. That's just some rhubarb leaves that I'm gonna let compost in here. This is where if I had plants that didn't survive the seed starting journey, I just have been throwing them in here and letting them compost. This bed, I think, is going to be my wheat bed. I'm still on the fence whether I'm gonna plant wheat or not. And if I do, I'm gonna plant it right here. And if I'm going to do it, I need to do it sooner than later. So you are gonna see this right after I film this. So let me know if I should plant wheat or not. It would be just an experiment to see if it could even happen. I really wanted to have wheat and jam and peanut butter all made from my garden and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, all homegrown ingredients, but that's not gonna happen this year for one reason, and I'll get to that when we get to it. Now this bed is looking okay. Right here, I had my white zucchinis, and those completely died, so I came back and I put some seed in the ground, so I'm waiting for those to germinate. Back there, we have cilantro that's looking beautiful. Right here, we have dahlias, and some of them look pretty darn good. And then some of them look pretty sad. So I think I put these out a little too early. So these are my petite floret. And what I'm gonna do, well, let me show you this real quick before I tell you what I'm gonna do. This was also zucchini here. I had 1 plant there and 1 plant here. This is just a green hybrid dungeon zucchini from Johnny Seed. It died after I planted it, so I direct sowed that, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that they germinate pretty soon. They should, because it's almost been a week since I put them in the ground. And then I have 1 Cosmo there and 1 little Cosmo right there. What I'm thinking for these dahlias, this is the first year I'm growing dahlias from either tuber or seed. I started these from seed myself, is I am not gonna plant them out until Mother's Day weekend, and I'm not gonna start them out if I do seed again next year so early. I planted these, I think, 8 weeks before my last frost date, or before I put them in the ground. Dahlias grow pretty quickly. From my little experience this year, I think I'm gonna wait a little bit to start them from seed, and I'm gonna wait to transplant them out. I think it just got a little too cold at night for them, and so I think that's why some of them look a little iffy, but hopefully they will bounce back and do just fine. So this bed is almost 100% planted out. Here we have a thyme plant that we started from seed last year that's to flower, and I see bees on this all the time, which is pretty cool. But this bed is one of my Roma tomato plant beds. I have 2 Roma tomato plant beds, and they're looking fantastic. So I have 1, 2, I kind of staggered them so that when I put a tomato cage around it, they'll have a little bit more room. But in the areas where I staggered, I am gonna be putting sweet potato vines, because sweet potatoes grow in the ground and tomatoes grow up. And I watched a reel of someone said that they transplant or companion plant really well, so I thought that I would experiment. But I'm not gonna put my sweet potatoes in the ground until June 1st, because sweet potatoes are a heat-loving plant, so I wanna wait till June 1st. Here are more of my sweet peas, so this is a flower, not something we're gonna eat, but hopefully it's going to fill out along with those ones, this trellis, and we will have a beautiful flower trellis. But in this bed, as well as the tomatoes, I had my zinnias that I had saved seed from last year, and I'm calling that my homestead zinnia mix. And I had a few of those do very, very well. They are not showing any signs of damage whatsoever. And so hopefully those are going to be beautiful in the center of this bed. And then on the back side, I planted some nasturtiums on the back side of this bed, and then I direct sowed a melon right here. I used the last of my seed, so I'm just using that as a marker, but we'll let the melon grow out this way if it germinates. So I'm gonna have my sweet potatoes on the south side of the bed because they will get more sun and they are heat-loving plants. And then on the back side, I have the nasturtiums, and those are gonna grow into this walkway, and hopefully that will be very beautiful. So that is that bed. Up here is a pretty simple bed, but it's starting to come together the way I want. This is a snapdragon bed, and I have 2 snapdragon beds, and I'm actually starting to get some blooms, which is pretty exciting. I could actually harvest those and encourage this plant to become even bushier. We've got some more blooms down here. But what I have in the back of this bed is I have tomato plants. So I have 4 tomato plants here. And then I have 2 tomatillo plants. And you know what? I think that one, something was munching on the stem. So I don't think that one is gonna survive. It looks okay now, but I'll come back out in probably an hour or 2 and it will be dead because that stem was munched on. But this tomatillo plant looks pretty good. So maybe I'll have to run to the local nursery and grab 1 more tomatillo plant because I definitely want 2. And then here we have 4 more tomato plants on the back side there. So my vision is for this to all be filled out with colorful flowers in front and the back to be filled out with tomatoes and tomatillos along that trellis. So that's what's in that bed. So now we're gonna move to this bed, which has quite a few kind of failures. The back side looks fantastic. That is actually pole black beans, and those have germinated very, very well. And so hopefully we're gonna have black beans growing up this trellis. But this front side of this bed, we've had a lot of damage. This whole entire bed was planted out with cauliflower and cabbage. I had about 9 or 10 plants here get eaten at the stalk by a bug, and so those all died. I've got some cauliflower here that are looking actually pretty good, and then some cabbage down here that looks okay. I need to figure out what I'm going to fill in those spaces. I've got some edamame or soybeans that I could put in those spaces and direct sow, but I haven't fully decided what is going to fill out that bed because it's looking a little sparse and I don't want half of a bed basically not to be planted out. So this bed is looking beautiful. This is the potato bed that my parents came and helped me plant. Along the edge here, I went ahead and just stuck some nasturtium seeds in the ground, and these are a vining nasturtium variety. So what I'm hoping that's gonna happen with those nasturtiums that have germinated is they're gonna cascade down the edge of this bed, and we're gonna have flowers along this entire edge of this bed. Time will tell if that will come to fruition, but that's kind of my vision with that bed. So here's another fun bed that I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. On the edge of each bed, we have ranunculus, and I am seeing my first potential ranunculus bloom right here. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. I don't remember which colors I put where. Along the back side, from this corner to that corner, I planted black bean pole beans, and from that T-post, I shouldn't say corner, T-post, to that T-post, I planted more of the pinto bean, or they're rattlesnake beans, but they can be used as a pinto bean or green bean. And these are a smaller trellis, so I thought it would be fun to compare the difference between my trellises back there where I have the pole beans and these shorter ones just to see how they do. In this main part of the bed, we have peppers, and these peppers are Anaheims. So my goal with these is to, so from here to here are Anaheims, is to roast those and make like diced green chilies like you get in a can. And then we have shishito peppers, poblano peppers, and some other sweet roasting peppers. And along the edge of this bed, just like in the bed with the potatoes, I just threw in a ton of nasturtium seeds. I direct sowed those, and I want to see if I can get nasturtiums to cascade down this bed. And then at this end, we have some more ranunculus where I don't see any buds on that yet. I am so happy with how the peppers are looking. I was incredibly nervous about putting the peppers in the ground because after the squash and zinnia kind of flop, I was worried that, I was just worried to put my peppers out, but they are looking fantastic. This bed I am so thrilled with. This is my garlic, and look how beautiful this garlic is. This is not an elephant garlic variety. These are, some of them were gifts from a friend and some I purchased, but look how big these stalks are. These are incredibly huge. I've never had stalks that big. When you're growing garlic, the size of the stalk directly correlates with how large the head is going to be. And this is some pretty incredible garlic. So let me show you the varieties. These are hardneck varieties, so I am gonna get a scape off these. I planted these on October 5th, 2023. And this variety is called Great North, and I put 20 heads of the Great North garlic in here. And then a huge section of this garlic from here all the way to here is Rocambole hardneck. These were all planted the same day. This is elephant garlic. Now look at the size of this stalk. It is about the same size as this Rocambole and the Great Northern. So that hopefully means we are going to get large heads of garlic for the majority of the garlic I'm growing. And the reason I want that is because it makes peeling garlic that much easier. I mostly have hardneck varieties, but I do have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 varieties of soft neck because I want to braid these if I can. These are definitely smaller stalks compared to the other varieties. This one's actually pretty decent, and that one's pretty decent. And these varieties are, they're gonna be harder to see. This is Sicilian Soft. I don't know what that one is. And this one, I am not sure how to say that, but I'm gonna go ahead and stick that back in here. And this is the only bed that I still have any landscape fabric on. I have obviously, if you've noticed, taken the landscape fabric off most of the beds, but this one, because the garlic's in there, I am just gonna leave it. And I have never seen garlic do something like this. What is happening here? Let's see, let's let you grow a little bit easier. And this one's doing that too. If you guys know what's happening with my garlic, ooh, hopefully I didn't just ruin that. But it's doing something weird where the green is not growing properly. And then over here, we have leeks and shallots. And then some volunteer potato plants because this was a potato bed last year. I'm sure there's potatoes, oh yeah, right here, growing in with the garlic as well. And so we've got this bed planted out with leeks and shallots. I've never grown shallots before. Some of them did not make it. You can see some bare spots, but some of them are starting to look really nice. From the garlic bed, we've got this bed here. This bed I just finished planting out 2 days ago. And along the edge here where we have this trellis, I had birdhouse gourds that I planted, but they died, so I reseeded those, and I don't see those coming up yet. And then along this edge, we planted back in February anemone corums. I have never grown anemones before, and they are looking stunning. This is what a white anemone looks like. The first time I ever saw this flower was on the show Cake Boss. I don't know if you guys remember, cake decorating shows were super, super popular, and me and my sister used to watch them all the time. And he made anemone flowers out of fondant. That probably was 15 years ago when I watched that, and I always thought they were absolutely stunning. And so fast forward 15 years, I don't know, maybe only 10 years, I now have an anemone growing in my garden, which is pretty incredible. And then along this edge, these were all volunteer. So all these starts you are gonna see along this edge and that back edge were all volunteers, meaning they self-seeded themselves from last year. Along the back edge, those are sunflowers, and these are cosmos. These are all flowers. The sunflowers and the cosmos were all sprinkled in the bed. They were not actually planted where you see them now. I gently lifted them out of the ground and put them along the back edge because they will probably get about 4 feet tall. And so I want them along the back edge so that they're not inhibiting the sunlight from getting the inside of the bed. And sunflowers do not like to be transplanted, but if they don't survive, I think they're going to because they are looking fine after a couple days of transplant, then that will be okay because I didn't start them. But I want them along the back edge so that in the middle of the bed, I could plant black beans. So I planted 2 days ago black beans that are a bush bean variety, so they're only gonna get about this tall. I have been planting and saving those black bean seeds since 2020. And so this is the 4th season that I am planting them. I bought them from M.I. Gardner, and they have just been continuing to do well. So I got those in the ground here. So we're gonna have sunflowers, black beans, hopefully, anemones, and cosmos at the end. I did the same thing with the cosmos. Those were in this bed, and I just kind of picked them up, transplanted them, and they're doing great. So now we're gonna come up to here. This is a very similar bed to one we had down there, but along this outside edge is where I planted peanuts. And I think my peanut dreams for this year's garden have been thwarted from cold weather. So I definitely planted these out too soon. I'm pretty sure I need to go ahead and transplant something else into here. I think what I'm gonna do right here is I'm gonna go ahead and get some green beans, jade green beans planted here, just a bush bean variety. Along the back, we have cilantro that looks really great. The inside here we have, this is another dahlia. This is Bee's Choice. And so we've got Bee's Choice dahlias in here. They're looking pretty good. And then down here, some of these peanuts don't look quite as bad. I mean, half the plant died, but I think they're probably stunted. I probably should just go ahead and pull those up and put something else there. Probably green beans there as well. And then along the backside, the cilantro I put along the backside is looking fantastic. I have tried growing corn. Every year I've had a garden and it's been a dismal disaster, and it takes up a lot of space for a very, 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 very little harvest. And so I figured what I'm gonna do is just purchase my corn from a local farmer. I've got a local farmer that grows beautiful, delicious corn, and I will save my garden space for growing other things like that I know that can do well, or things that I just wanna have fun experimenting with, like peanuts that clearly didn't do well this year, but maybe next year, or maybe wheat or flowers, or something practical like this bed right here. Along the outside edge are more time plants. I do want to transplant all those. I want to get those up into my landscaping because I just don't need them down in my garden. But I've got another Roma tomato bed here, and I offset these again. In the front, again, like the other Roma bed, I am going to put sweet potato slips. And then I thought that I started enough Roma plants myself, but I did not start enough to get 2 full beds worth of Roma plants. So I did, over the weekend, purchase 3 Roma tomato plants. And then all the starts of cherry tomatoes that I started died. So I bought, oh look, there's 2 plants in there. I bought 2 different cherry tomatoes from the grocery store, and the cucumbers that I started did not survive. So I bought these 2 days ago, and I really need to find places for them today and get those in the ground. But one thing I planted along this edge is, I don't remember the name of it. I will put the name and a photo of it right here. I had planted sweet peas along this trellis, but none of them germinated over here, which is kind of interesting because I had really great germination on the other trellis. And so on Instagram, I saw this random reel that had these, it's a bean, I don't remember the name of it, but it can get 20 feet tall. And the reel said, if you want a lot of hummingbirds in your garden, plant this particular thing. So I planted it here, hoping that it is going to go crazy and cover this trellis. At least on this side, because on this side of the trellis, I had good germination of my sweet peas. And so we are gonna see how well this does. My dream is to have all the trellises, or at least arch trellises, covered this year. Last year, whatever I planted around them did not do anything. So I'm hoping for a beautiful arch trellis with flowers and beauty. So we'll see if I get any germination. What is germinated now? That is some volunteer calendula. I had calendula here last year, and that just self-seeds itself really well. So I'm just gonna leave that alone and then see if we can get the beans that I planted to grow. From this bed, we have this bed, and this one is starting to fill out really, really nicely. Along the back side, I have tomato plants along the back here. So I'm hoping those trellis up this trellis. And then in the front, we have more snapdragons, and you can see these snapdragons are already starting to fill out. They look absolutely incredible. I could even harvest quite a few of these if I wanted to and start making bouquets out of this. This is Orange Wonder Snapdragon, and I think it's absolutely stunning. Look at that, I mean, look at that. And then back there is Black Prince. A lot of flower farmers will actually, they will put netting down to keep their snapdragons from falling over, but I'm not really worried if they fall over because I don't need, you know, very, very long stem length. I just need it long enough to put into a mason jar. So I'm happy with this stem length. If I was a professional flower farmer, I would want it 4 times the size. But I'm not a professional flower farmer. I just want a few flowers in my house in a mason jar, and so that's plenty tall enough for me. So now we're gonna go down to this bed here. This is my last pepper bed. So I have sweet peppers in here, all different varieties. Along this back edge, I put some little Jack B. Little orange pumpkins. Those died, so I reseeded that. Then we've got just sweet banana peppers here. We have yellow monster peppers. So all of the rest of the peppers that don't have a tag next to it are yellow monsters, which is a bell pepper. I did throw in a couple nasturtiums in the front. I threw in some Black Prince snapdragons. I put also some more feverfew. And then along the back side, we have, I believe those are scarlet runner beans, and I want those to fill this back trellis up. And then right here, I went ahead and put my 2 eggplants. We will see if we can get some eggplants. I don't think I've ever eaten it. Maybe I haven't, didn't know, but we'll see if we can get a harvest and we can try that. So this bed right here, some things have changed since last time you and I were out here planting in this bed. In the back, I have 2 different or 3 different varieties of cosmos. I have some that self-seeded themselves that I had planted last year. They're a white cosmo, and I transplanted those from around the garden and stuck them in here. I also have some different red ones that I got from Azure, and the back side is all cosmos. So I planted those since last time you were out here with me. In the front, we have all of the different varieties of eucalyptus. I had to think about that for a second. And then in the middle, we had precious metal. I had 2 rows of precious metal zinnias that I had got from Floret Seed. You can see the tag right here. Well, all of those completely died. So this was interesting. This variety, none of them made it. They absolutely all shriveled up and died. So this is one of the seed packets I reordered from Floret. They should be here any day. When they get here, I'm gonna put 2 rows of direct sowed precious metal zinnias in here. So my dream is to have cosmos in the back, zinnias in the middle, and eucalyptus in the front. So we're gonna see how well that goes. And then down here, we have onions in the front, celery in the middle, and some more sugar peas in the back. Now those I had to reseed because I had pretty poor germination the first time I seeded them. And you can see the difference between my second planting and my first planting. These are probably tall, nope, not quite tall enough to get to the trellis, but I'm excited to have this fill out this trellis, and I'm glad I reseeded it. It's still kind of sparse germination, but it's better than nothing. And then this part, this is celeriac. So I have celery, traditional celery down there, and then celeriac here, which is kind of a bulb vegetable. And then here, look at this thing. This is my sage plant, and it is about to flower, or these are the flowers. I'm not sure. I've never seen my sage plant do anything like that before. This I do want to transplant into my landscape at some point, but for now it's just gonna live right here. From this bed, we have this bed here. So I had some gourds that I put here, and I didn't think those were gonna make it, so I did direct sow a few more gourd seeds. This is my fish blood meal. No, not fish blood meal. This is my blood meal, which is my nitrogen fertilizer. I need to bring this inside. I just put this in the beds when I planted them, so I just need to bring that inside. But you can see these cosmos are looking fantastic. I do not remember the name of the cosmos that are in this bed, but they had hardly any damage at all. These were planted the same day all the other cosmos were planted. I have a little bit of damage on this one, but for the most part, they look fantastic. I just think it's really interesting that some of the varieties did very poorly and then some look great. So that is the zinnias in here. Here you can also see where I did have some plants that died. Here is flat stacker. This is another white pumpkin. That one completely died. This one I don't think is gonna make it. So I did, along each one of these spots, I did put another seed in the ground. This one looks pretty good after the damage it had. This is Lady Godiva. So this is the pumpkin that you harvest the seeds because they don't have a hole on it. And so I did put seed in the ground here. This is Candy Roaster. This one does not look very good, but it might survive. I put another seed in the ground there. This has another seed in the ground. All of these I reseeded, even though some of them are looking okay. This is more Lady Godiva. Let's see. This is White Flat Stacker. This is another one of the green ones here. These actually look okay, but again, there are more seeds in the ground. This is Cinderella. And then I put more gourds right here. Before we go up and talk about the green stalks, I almost forgot because I can't see them and I didn't label them. In my 2 onion beds, I came in and I planted carrots. So this bed has a few hundred carrots seeds planted. And the bed way down there where I had the celery and carrots, or celery and onions, I planted a few hundred carrots as well. This is what I did last year. I had my carrots and onions in the same bed. it's a major space saver, and the onions did well, the carrots did well. So I can get 2 crops in one bed in a smaller space, which is fantastic. So now what I want to do is show you my green stalks, because we have been working really hard on starting a bunch of these things together indoors. And so I want to show you what they look like now. So hopefully in a month or 2, they're going to look full and lush and beautiful. First though, here's the rhubarb. It has exploded. I have been eating off this like crazy, trying to enjoy it while it's in season. Here is my first green stalk. Now this is my herb green stalk. So some of these herbs we started together. Some of them I purchased from Azure. So we have basil, parsley. I threw in some nasturtiums. We have tarragon, cilantro, just a bunch of really, really good things. I wanted the majority of my herbs this year up on my patio, so I don't have to go all the way out into the garden when I want some parsley. I can just come here and harvest it. This is a strawberry tower that we started together, and I cannot believe it. These were bare root strawberry plants that we planted about 3 weeks ago, and they had no leaves on them, and we're already starting to see some buds on some of these plants, which is pretty incredible. Here I went to my local nursery and picked up some starts. This though was a volunteer cosmos. I have 3 green stalks now that are dedicated to strawberries, and then I have 1 that's dedicated to herbs, and then I have 2 that are dedicated to flowers. Now this green stalk, I went ahead to my local nursery and I picked up these flowers. These are all petunias that I purchased from a local nursery, and then there's a couple calibrachoa in here. I've never grown these before. The cool thing about calibrachoa is you don't have to deadhead them. The dead flowers just fall off themselves, versus petunias you have to deadhead. So the colors I went with in this green stalk are this really pretty purple, this dark black. It's not quite open yet, but it is so dark, and then this orange. So I thought it would be a pretty combination, and I'm excited to see what this one is going to look like with the starts that I purchased from a local nursery versus the one that I have over here where we started these petunias together back in like, goodness, I think it was February when we started these, and I'm starting to get some blooms on them. Now you can see the difference between the one over there. Those plants are about 4 times the size of mine, but I thought it would be fun to have one to see if I could get the ones that I started to fill out this green stalk just as much as the one over there. So I've got, this is the garden party variety. I've got a couple blooms of those. And then this is the shockwave purple. This is the one I was the most excited about. I've got a couple blooms of those and a couple more on there. So we're gonna see if I can get these ones to fill out just as much as the ones I got from my local greenhouse. We were talking, I went shopping for flowers with my mother-in-law the weekend of Mother's Day, and we were talking to the nursery owners that specialize in petunias. They have a ton of, they have probably 100 different varieties of petunias, and we were talking about how difficult they are to start because you have to start them so early. And so it was just interesting talking to them. So I'm pretty proud of my little tower of petunias that I've got. Now this is the other variety of strawberries that we planted out together in this green stalk. I did have a couple of these not survive. About 6 of them didn't survive. So I do have some different plants that I'm going to go ahead and transplant into this. But the most part, these look absolutely fantastic, and we're getting some good growth on them because there were no leaves at all when I put these in the ground. So I'll just transplant the couple that died with some new strawberry plants, and like this one didn't survive, but that's okay. So that is the garden. We've got quite a few updates. Bees are gonna be here in the next couple weeks, and almost all the beds are planted out except for one, and together we officially harvested the first flowers out of this garden, which we have been working on growing these snapdragons for, I think 2.5 months. I can't remember when I started them. I think it was February, March, April. Yeah, 2.5 months. These little flowers have been in the making, which is pretty awesome that the hard work is starting to pay off. So if you enjoyed this and you're new, please consider subscribing because I will take you along the entire growing season and We started these together and we were going to be harvesting these together. And we're not only going to be enjoying beautiful flowers, but we are going to be enjoying some pretty yummy things that we're going to be making out of the garden with the fun food items that come out of the garden. I can pop a couple of my other videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you are having a fantastic day and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.